Anohita, thank you so much for joining us on the road less traveled. I always look forward to these conversations because no matter how many conversations I've had, each person's journey along the road less traveled is so unique, so interesting. So it's really my guilty pleasure, apart from the fact that I hope a lot of the audiences who listen to these conversations take away that it's okay to be entrepreneurial and take risks, and that there's so much more than the regular beaten path. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you so much, Sandhya. I'm really happy to be a part of this interview, and I'm really looking forward to share all our stories, struggles with you. And thanks again for giving me this opportunity to share, our story. Thank you so much.
Anahita, while we will talk mostly about Seva and the very amazing women and the stories that you come across, I do want to start with your own story in a sense. As CEO, I'd like to take for you to take me back in time, and when you were a little girl. If I met you then, would I have met a enterprising, risk-taking girl who knew exactly what she was going to do, or was it a very different Anohita who is today learned different skills to be who she is? So take me back in time.
Sure. So, of course, Sandhya, I am able to relate with all the terms that you have used to describe me and entrepreneurial and the risk taking. Of course, I used to be and I am still. So, I belong to a academic family, but still, we have a lot of issues with the gender equality. And though I belong to a middle class family with a well educated and all the women of the house is working and all, but still I used to feel a lot of restrictions in terms of movement being a girl. So my grandfather was quite orthodox, and he was always giving a girl, okay, don't talk loudly, don't go there, don't it's after sunset you have to go back to home. Of course I do have faced such issues being a girl of the family, but I used to fight of those things. And I never let them to control my life totally. So it was always, if something is right which I want to do, then I am going to do, no matter even if I have to fight with my own family. And that the main fight started. Originally I belonged to Bihar, Patna, and when I passed my 10th, and then I wanted to study science, and my grandfather was like, no, you should study arts, because in Bihar people thinks that if you are the girl is studying arts, then she doesn't need to go out much, and she doesn't need to take tuitions much, so she will be mainly inside the house, and all the books can be provided to her, and she'll keep reading and all. So basically there will be less exposure with the outside world once you start studying arts. But I was like, no, I have to study science, and I was more interested in that. And when I decided to take science, of course he didn't like my decision to study the course, but I enrolled myself, and I went out, I took all the tuitions for whatever botany, zoology, and all the subjects and all. So my fight started from there. And then my chachu, he had already come to Delhi for his higher educations, and he was well studied in Delhi and settled in the Delhi and all. And then he called me to Delhi for my higher educations. Then again there was another fight, firstly she needs to do the graduation from Bihar, and then she will be going to Delhi because she is not that mature to take her own decisions and all. So again the another fight was that no, I have to go to Delhi because I want to see the broader a broader side of the world, and I want to have a different opportunity that I cannot get in the Bihar. So I was always a person who was questioning decisions made for her if I was not very much comfortable, and also to say why. If they used to say that you are not supposed to do this because you are a girl, so I was like, why? This is why. So yeah, of course, I was always like that.
Lovely. It is inspiring. This is the road less traveled for you, right? I mean, it wasn't the conventional road, and you chose your own path. Anohita then, who moved to Delhi, faced resistance. quickly tell me what led you to Seva and where you are today.
Yeah. So when I decided to pursue my masters, so I had a lot of options for the courses, and when it was 2010 when I was supposed to get enrolled in the master course, and that time I could see a lot of youngsters and my age and my friends were going for the MBA, but somehow I was not that interested and to incline towards the MBA enrollment and all. Then I explored, I want to do a master in social work. And this is how I land up in the Delhi School of Social Work, University of Delhi. And I did my master's and pass out at 2012. And then we have, it's a professional course. You always have a campus placements. And then I also had a campus placements, and I got placed in one of the organizations, SOS Children's Villages of India. And I got a position senior coordinator, and I chose to be in Jammu because since I already had 2 3 years in Delhi, and I wanted to be away from the comfort zone of my family, and I want to challenge and experiment my entire discipline of social work that I had studied. And I decided to be in Jammu and worked with SOH Children's of Villages. And there my profile was, to do a social investigations for the orphan kids who were supposed to be adopted by the SOS villages. And then I did a lot of, social investigation. I went to the Doda villages and other military prone areas of Jammu and did a lot of that sort of thing. But somehow I felt that I'm not liking my profile, and it was really monotonous for me. So yeah, once in a while I was sent for the social investigation and all, and creating report of the kids that was supposed to be adopted by the organization. But mainly it was a desk job, and my job was just writing reports, which I really felt that I'm not enjoying. And it was a first job, so I was also experimenting and trying to give different areas a try, and then define my own perspective where I want to head in my life. And then after 9 months of working with our organization, I realized that no, this job is not for me, and I'm not enjoying at all. And I was in Jammu, I was staying on my own. And then I saw a job vacancy in SEWA, Self-Employed Women's Association, for a relief and rehabilitation coordinator. And that was year 2013, and it was just happened, if you are aware about the flash flood that occurred in June 2013 in Uttarakhand, Rudraprayag districts of Uttarakhand. And the position was for the relief and rehabilitation coordinators. That time SEWA had received a project to carry the relief and rehabilitation work in Rudraprayag, and the position for the same as a project coordinator. I applied, and the first round of interview happened on the phone, and then second round of interview I came Delhi, and then gave, and fortunately I got selected. And the day I joined Seva Bharat, I left for Rudraprayag. It was just after 3 months of that flash flood, and I can't explain the sort of views and the sort of images I saw on the way to the affected areas. It was really heartwarming and disturbing images, because you can still see people are digging out the dead bodies out of the rivers, and houses are all collapsed.
Till you've experienced it, you cannot imagine it. So it must have been
yeah,
terrible.
definitely. So till then, and then I kept working in. I really liked my role because it was challenging, and I could feel there is something that I just wake up in the morning and I feel I have something that is going to challenge me. And Anahita, you have to think before you can take up the task. And then I kept working in Seva, and my interest area was also women empowerment. As since I myself has faced gender discrimination, of course, in terms of movement, because we belong to a privileged community. So I had everything for upper, education and the clothes to wear, food to eat. But there was a restriction in the form of movement, that being a girl, I was not supposed to roam around and all. But of course, this was also one of the restrictions that I have faced, that made me realize being a girl what it is. And so I think that also made me rebel, that I'm not agree to whatever people is saying. So that challenge Seva has been giving me, and the versatile profile it has been offering me really took my heart, and I decided to work long term with the Seva.
So if I were to kind of summarize what you said, it's almost like you found your purpose with Seva.
Yes. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
And that's
Yeah.
lovely. Seva is an organization that really excites us at Game immensely. It is about the small businesses that we believe that will do so much for the country if they can be empowered at this
Yeah.
level, of course, to just encourage them to run businesses, but eventually can they become job creators. But let's
Yeah.
stop, pause for a moment at where you are, uh, CEO,
Yeah.
Seva, and an organization that's doing so much for women empowerment through through encouraging them to be entrepreneurs in a sense, right? And this conversation is about entrepreneurship. What were the challenges of that you observed in managing a largely informal economy, and how did Seva and manage to work around that?
So, when we talk about Seva's livelihood approach,
Hmm.
we always have a collective livelihood approach. So
Yeah.
we don't think for an individual women, we think for a large group of women. So we can have a collective livelihood approach for them. In Seva, we mainly work with the informal sector women workforce. And when we talk about the Ruaab SEWA, which is one of the enterprise formed by Seva Bharat, and so that's why we believe in forming an enterprise. So through that, a large section of women from informal economy will be catered, and they will be given a security, livelihood security. So working with informal women, there's a lot of challenges. Sort of these women are not structured in any sort of structure. So you always have to start mobilizing them first. So when you decide to work with them, the first step has to be reaching out to them, making a network of them, and then start mobilizing, making them think about themselves, the first thing. And in the best part of Seva is like being a woman, I work for the betterment of the women sections of informal workforce, right? So that's the best part, and I can relate to them. So how? So that's the main thing. But of course, challenge is there. And when Seva Bharat decided to put me in the Ruaab Seva Artisans Process Company is one of the enterprise which is totally for the women and by the women, I would say, because the Ruaab board comprises 90% of the community women themselves. They are in the board, and then shareholder they are also. So the enterprise and entire enterprise belongs to the courageous women who actually looking forward to do something for themselves.
Anohita, over and above the challenges that you kind of touched on and the work you're doing, COVID threw challenges that none of us were prepared for. So you have a challenging situation already of creating opportunity in a difficult space. And then you have a pandemic. What was the collective approach you took, and how did can you share some specific um, ways that you all managed the situation?
So, what has been my biggest learning post this 2 years of profile handling the CEO of Ruaab Seva Artisans Process Company is that you have to anticipate the risk in advance. Like you cannot wait opportunity to knock at your door. You have to run behind the opportunity.
Mhm.
That's the biggest learning what I have learned. And I remember I joined Ruaab in September 2019, and then we had a next board meeting in March 2020. That was also beginning of the pandemic in India. And I think in the board meeting we specifically kept one of the agenda that are anticipating the impact of the pandemic on the company, because the sort of company we have a luxurious item, and once you are expecting a economic slowdown and the people may be laid off from their jobs, they are not going to buy handcrafted and hand woven silk sarees and dupattas, right? So what next should be for the Ruab and the support system? So I would like to go in a points. One, you have to anticipate your risk coming your way in quite advance,
Mhm.
and then start looking for the opportunity before time. You cannot wait for people to create opportunity for you. You have to literally grab those opportunity from the scenario. Okay. The third is you need to have a support system that can back up you with the back up you in such crisis time. For Ruaab, we had Seva Bharat, who were our parent organizations also, and the second largest network of the informal sector women artisans. Without them, we couldn't sail through of this time, because they were the ones who stitched all those masks. That, and the third, are collective efforts that I have been learned in Seva Bharat, and that also part of the upbringing of these women who has been Seva's members for years. Because if I talk about the Ruaab, the women are there for the last 10-12 years. They understand strength of a union. They understand significance of collectivization. They understand power of collective bargaining. So their company, I would say, was the biggest strength that kept me going on. Because if I see myself as a CEO of the company, Sandhya, I don't have experience in the business handling. I'm a development professional. I have done studied in the social work, and then I was just dropped in to handle the business, that too in that such a crisis time. So these were the factors, and a marvelous team that Ruaab got, which is again cadre of the courageous women, professional women like me. So I think these were the 5-6 factors that really made Ruaab going on, and we could sail through that pandemic. Yeah.
Lovely, such an example. Just listening to you, I feel inspired. I don't want to minimize the challenge of the pandemic, but I'm also conscious that when people listen, people like to listen to some success stories also. We all are tuned into what works well.
Yeah,
Can you talk about a couple of specific successes, not just as Seva, but some of the micro businesses that you'll support?
So micro businesses is one, but here I would like to explain the entire journey of this enterprise, which is supporting a lot of almost 350 women, and has supported during the pandemic also. And then we will be going back on the micro entrepreneurs, which is also nurturing under the umbrella of the parent organization Seva Bharat. So when all of us started working in Ruaab, I and my team member and the women workforce, without them it was not possible. After all, Ruaab belongs to them. So the total turnover of the company was 20 lakhs, with the payment, with the 6 lakh payment to the members, and the entire enterprise almost on the verge of shutting down. And then pandemic hits, and we were thinking what to do at the moment. And if if you remember, so in the first lockdown in India, it was a sudden lockdown, nationwide lockdown, and under that, lot of daily wage laborers had lost jobs, and there was a mass migration from metro cities to the villages. And who were those? Those were the husbands of our women, my women, who works in the Seva Ruaab, who we call bands. So their husbands lost jobs, and then it was the women who took care of the expenses of their households like a warrior in that crisis while stitching mask. So in first year of pandemic, Ruaab were able to stitch total 8 lakhs of cotton mask. And there's a lot of success stories of those women who proudly say that I supported my household in the time of crisis. Now, if somebody hears that, so now you tell me, who is the warrior here, and who is one who is taking responsibility in the crisis? Of course, it was very bad happened with their husbands, but they lost their jobs. It was the women who were able to support, right?
We don't talk enough about those stories. We don't.
Yeah.
So glad you're sharing it.
So that was one. And these women, they have also faced a lot of challenges. I still remember, because when I start talking about my journey through the pandemic with my women Benz and my team member, so everything is just floating around in front of my eyes, how we could do. It was the first restrictions. The suppliers were not available for the bulk fabric supplies for the mask, and the women who stitches masks, they were staying in the rented buildings, and their landlord were not allowing them to take the work to home, because all of them are home-based workers, and these women were supposed to take care of their household chores plus childcare also there. But their landlord were just showing and creating troubles by saying that it's a corona time, we will not allow any outside stuff to be taken inside of your house. Okay, so that was the issues. So they were coming to our centers, sitting in our center, and then doing, and sometimes they have done all the stitching overnight. They have done, because It was a crisis where country was also struggling with the shortage of the cotton mask. Okay. So if I say these women are also face of the COVID warrior, because indirectly they were contributing in providing the medical supplies in the form of medical mask. And in the times of Ramzan, all they were keeping their fast also, and then throughout the night they used to work and look after of their husbands and domestic violence both. Because when their husband lost jobs, of course there was a lot of tension in the house. Because if you look at their houses, informal sector women workforce, they manage 5 6 family members in one tiny room sets. So if it's a normal days, husbands goes out with the auto and the rickshaws and all, kids are in the school, government schools, and then women can stay at home and work freely. But when everyone is at home, schools are shut, husbands is not on the job, and the women also have to stock up their material and all. So of course there was a lot of issue of domestic violence also. In that tension and in that serious conditions and crisis situations, they were able to deliver product on time. And in that, Ruaab was able to give product on time to our clients. And these are the examples. And because of that, today Ruaab is able to proudly say that, of course, by now we have almost make 10 to 15 lakhs of cotton masks and providing livelihood to 350 plus women across states: Delhi, Punjab, Jaipur, Rajasthan, and Bihar both.
Amazing.
So yeah.
And you are right. They are no less than COVID warriors, because you needed people to go above and beyond, and clearly they did. Not that's such a big part of this conversation. But not to sidestep, but I'm curious, now that we're not in the middle of the pandemic, touch wood, hopefully not, we've seen the worst of it. What happens to these mask making businesses, because they've created that opportunity? How do they kind of pivot?
Yeah. So, of course, here again comes the role of the leadership and the entire team. So, when we got into the mask making and all, we also had to train these women, because these women are artisan by nature.
Yeah.
So they are fully skilled in the handwork, embroidery, ari works and all, but they lack skills in stitching, because they are artisan by nature. They are not supposed to have multiple skills at a time. But when we started making masks, so we had to train them. The entire team, like Priya is merchandiser, she literally created step by step video on the mask making, and then we send those videos over WhatsApp and all and train them. So apart from enhancing their skill sets in the stitching, we were also doing digital literacy training, because before the pandemic, these women were totally unaware of the Google Meet, Zoom, and the YouTube video downloader and the WhatsApp, because they never needed that. We have a community outreach, we have centers in their community, they used to come and deal everything physically. So apart from the grabbing opportunity from the market, we were also training our women in the stitching things and in the digital literacy, how they should look at the WhatsApp videos and all. So that was one part. And so for last 3 years we have been making masks, and this year also we are expecting almost 5 6 lakhs of masks. Our clients, they have already confirmed, we are working on those things. Plus what we did during the pandemic, so as I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, that you need to anticipate and be ready always in the beginning phase of your any what I say beginning phase for any sort of journey, that I would like to say that. So when we had to take mask as one of our work, we started anticipating impact and thinking, okay, what should, since now we know, of course it's a pandemic, it has to go sometime, right? It can be there 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, not more than that. What after that? So we have started thinking about that also. So one or two clients with whom we started talking, what we did, we started exploring what can be the alternative product that can be their bread and butter, which they will be there, and we would be getting flow of the order irrespective of any pandemic. So our one of the major client who is giving the mask order, and they are into the eye screening work, and they are right now they are doing the health and hygiene kits distribution. Under that they are including masks, so we are making masks for them. But they also distribute the spectacles to the community. They do eye screening, and then whatever power is coming there, so they are using a specs cover, plastic, as of now plastic, but they are really keen to go for the eco-friendly packaging. Because in last couple of years our government is also promoting Atmanirbhar, made in India sort of, and they have, I think, major amount of government funding, so they want to go eco-friendly and support the concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat and all. So they we were just having a conversation, because since we were working with them for last 2-3 years. So yeah, so it was just a conversation. They said that, Ki Anohita, listen, we are trying to have this cloth pouch for the eye wear, which we want to get it done and replace the plastic ones. So I was like, Ki, okay, then why don't you give us a chance to try? Because since we are an artisan enterprise, we can easily make such kind of cases for you. And you won't believe, since that was also first time for them to experiment a cloth pouch for their spectacles, and it we took almost 1 year, both of us, both the parties, like Ruaab and the other party, to make the samples. We almost make 10 to 20 types of samples for them. And since they were also just visualizing their imaginations, what has to be, they were not very much clear with the designs. It was first time they were also introducing the same concept. So whatever time we used to give them the sample, they go and have an internal meeting, and then come back to us with a lot of feedback. No, no, this, no, we want to include that. And after almost a year, we the sample got approved by them, and the company is US based. They like the entire thing and all, and they were like, no, this is nice. So the learning is here. When we were working with one client, so we were not stopping just at one product. We keep exploring the other feasibility with them. What can be the other feasibility? Because in India, whatever you work, there is always space for a handcrafted thing. Packaging is always there. If not very technical, not very specific, I can propose packaging, right? Those our women can make. So with clients, we were quite aware, and we were realizing the pandemic is going to be over in a couple of years. So we have to focus what can be the alternative continuity in terms of business from that particular client. So we kept exploring that. That's the idea. Yeah.
And Mohita, you have said so many valuable things in this last bit of our conversation. I feel like it's a mini MBA. Really,
Yes.
everything you have
I'm
said.
glad.
How, how do you anticipate? How do you turn a problem into an opportunity? How do you remain agile? How do you explore within existing opportunities other opportunities? This is everything an MBA school teaches. It's just amazing. I promise you.
Honestly, I'm not aware about, because I haven't done MBA. So yeah.
You don't have to. You're ahead of the curve. And we started this conversation. I was already interested to know, but what you have told me is just so empowering. What you're doing is just amazing. You're ahead of the journey in the road less traveled. And I'm so glad you shared that. I cannot imagine that people listening to our conversation won't go away having learned very fundamental but important lessons. So thank you
Thank you
so
so
much
much.
for sharing that. I want to move to one area, Anohita, that in India as a culture, we don't talk about it. Failure, right? We see failure as a bad thing. But my boss, the founder of Game, Ravi Venkatesan, he always says, failure is success WIP, right? It is not, it's not, you can't look at failure as one thing going wrong on its own. It's a series of opportunities that work, don't work to get you where you end up going to. But since I like to talk about that and normalize the idea of failure leading to eventual success, can we talk about a couple of things that went clearly wrong and how you'll emerged from that?
So there are a lot of things. Of course, like when you start doing something, there is a possibility of getting that in a wrong way or sometimes in right way also. So even in Ruaab, I think in the past, it has experiment with the ready-made garments. Okay. And they started making a lot of, I would say, ready-made tops, but basically top wear for the women. But the one thing that time also we were observing, the designs that we adopted was not very familiar for the Indian customers. So anyways, they were also trying to target the West market, but that did not work at all. So of course, how do you test market for any product when you go for the exhibitions, when you put them in the stores and all? That literally did not work out. Because the one thing was the learning out of that, the product were only made for the West market. Since an Indian brand, you also need to think about the segments of the clients that you have and the segments of the society that you need to create the entire supply chain. So that was one thing. And the second thing, the clientele you're looking forward to may not visit in that particular expected time. So the entire our ready-made range of the garment got really wrong, and we decided not to take that forward. And the biggest learning was what is our strength, that we should give more focus on that. So if we talk about the enterprise, so those ready-made garments were made by the hand woven fabric, which additionally added cost to the entire range. And then you hadn't constructed that particular product that can cater a multi-sector of your country and even the West market. So that totally went wrong. So then we analyzed, okay, so one thing got wrong, how we need to analyze the entire capacity of an enterprise based on our informal sector women workforce. So the unique and USP, we can say that for any business, is the skill sets our women is having in terms of that, silk weaving, which is a world famous. The designer like Saman Chauhan is sourcing silk from Bhagalpur, Silk City of Bihar. We have a weaver cluster there. And then Fulia, we have a woman who really trained in the Jamdani weaving, which is a world famous and really known for its delicate and quite intricate designs and all. So then we started, rather than reconstructing that beauty that is coming from the ground raw, we should sell them and present to the world in the in the very organic form, and let the world decide what they want to do with that. So once we felt the ready-made range is not really doing well in the market, we immediately stopped that. But why it failed, you need to analyze the entire situation. And what were what were our weaknesses and what resources we need to add on to make another things happen. Those things, but you need to talk, because failure is not always something things to get disappointed. Absolutely. It's also learning lessons, and through that you can learn a lot of things and emerge as a much better person and with a better experience on that particular things.
No, I'm glad you shared that, because I think that's why I like to bring up failure.
And second thing also, second point in terms of when we are talking about the failures, Sandhya, if you allow, I would like to add one more point.
Please do, please.
Yeah. So that was one thing. Second part, since Ruaab journey, what we have been doing since we are SEWA, and the SEWA is a parent organization for Ruaab SEWA Artisans Producer Company. So what we think is sometimes we also take emotional decisions for our women. So what we used to do, that whoever comes to Ruaab as a needy person for work, we used to, okay, we will include them and we and give them some work that has been going on. But that really, that really enhanced the defective pieces in our work and the quality compromised, I would say. Because whatever women randomly we are including in our workforce, in Ruaab particularly, of course they can be connected with the other workforce, but if they are not artisan by nature and we are included them, the product is going to be quality compromised. And once the product is quality compromised, then there is a less market value, or there may not be market value at all for that particular thing. So in that way, Ruaab never would be able to get sustainable. So what one strategy when we observe and when we realize that this one of the mistakes we have been repeating over and over. So in the pandemic itself, because we had a lot of time, since we were just focusing on one sort of product which doesn't need a lot of designing and other technical inputs, we also put a lot of time on building our own stocks and revisiting our strategy. So then realize that this is one of the mistakes that we have been doing. We have been including any women, of course they are needy. So rather than deciding if we should take time and revisit and assess their skill sets and then decide in which category she needs to put, should not directly put on the manufacturing and on the premium product. So that's one second learning and strategy we have finalized. Ruaab as an enterprise is only going to work with the natural artisans, and we have a lot of women who is the natural artisans who has been doing this work for generations. And once you see their work, you cannot you cannot pick out any flaws. That is flawless. That is flawless. So that was the second that we have learned throughout the pandemic.
Anohita, I know I sound like a stuck record, but everything you have told me, and especially the last point, is just really sophisticated MBA. Better, of course, because you're actually doing it and it's not in a textbook. And I promise you, I'm not just saying this because this is something I myself believe. I think that there is a place for emotion and how you can support people, but there is a place for making decisions, business decisions that will actually support a larger number of people when you're not making an emotional decision.
Right? Thank you so much, Sandhya.
No, you've just hit the nail on the head. Thank you. I want to, we've had a really good, solid conversation. I want to spend a little time having a bit of, light-hearted conversation, a round of rapid fire.
Definitely.
Okay. Who is your entrepreneur icon?
So honestly, I haven't thought about it right now because I was never prepared to come in the entrepreneurship. So sure. You have idol and all when you have a life plan for that, right? I never had. And it's just been 2 years and suddenly one day Nana Ben called me and Anahita, you start looking after Ruaab. So it was never planned for me. So as I don't know who to follow and who can be my role model. Honestly speaking, I cannot refer anyone right now. But yes, I have a plan to figure out this and make my role model in the future, because right now I'm figuring out how to manage this enterprise, honestly speaking.
You are quickly becoming my role model.
That's such an honor to me, Sandhya. Yeah.
The mistake you've made, you'd advise. I understand we all have to learn from our own mistakes. But if you can articulate a mistake that you made that you'd advise, your community of women not to make, what would you say? What's a mistake they shouldn't repeat that you've learned?
Yeah, I think undermining their own capacity, I would say. Because even my mentor Renana Jhamwala, Sanchita Mitra, who is the senior leaders in Seva Bharat, and I really respect them a lot because whatever I have learned because of them. So recently we also had a basic workshops and we were talking about what we have learned during the pandemic and what has been my biggest learning and lessons as of now. So I think undermining your own capacity. I never thought of coming in the entrepreneurship and doing this and working with our women entrepreneurs and all. So I think you should never undermine your own capacity because you never know what is inside. Yeah.
Lovely. What would Anohita like to be doing 5 years from now?
So my dream is, again, I envision myself working with Ruaab because this is the place where my heart belongs. And I really, I'm working for Ruaab and I have a dream and this is my career also, and my career is everything for me. So I dream Ruaab getting sustainable, independent and run by a group of community women and ordering me to make a presentations for them. That is my vision for them, and the day I would be able to do, I think my vision will and my dream will come true, because I really believe in women empowerment and I would be feeling proud if I would be able to, make realize our women that Ruaab belongs to them and they are the owner of this enterprise and the brand. Yeah.
In a way, what you're saying is when you become redundant, for you, that is success in a sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Lovely. Do you have time? I know this, what you do is intense. It's a hard job, it's a challenging job, it's what you love, and there are lots of benefits. Do you have some downtime? Do you have time to watch a film, for instance? What's your
Yeah.
favorite movie?
Of course, it's really tough to make a work-life balance these days, since all of us are working at multiple folds and the entire team member is handling multiple things. So our plate is always full. But I take time to watch movies because I really love. So when I am back to my house, so then in the night, so that's a different thing. I am able to finish my movie for a week. Like if I have started on Monday, it may go until Saturday because you keep watching 10 minutes every day. But I do like to watch. Yeah.
Which is your favorite movie?
Recently, I know it's a very famous movie and I hadn't watched it. But recently I have watched it in the, in the Pursuit of Happiness.
Wow.
And I really love that. It's a very old movie, very famous. Everybody must have watched. So now, since I haven't done MBA, I try to watch all the movie based on the entrepreneurship skills. So I have shortlisted a lot of movies on Netflix, like Founder and The Social Network. Though I have watched it, so now I watch to again and learn skills, honestly skills, the professional skills to manage the businesses. But recently I watched feel good movie in the Pursuit of Happiness, and I really like the journey of Will Smith in the film. And like when I saw him struggling throughout his life and then end just winning that one position that he was dying for. So I was like, I am in a much better position because I have support. I have support of Seva Bharat. I have support of my family. So of course I can also do that. Yeah.
Lovely. When you were talking about films and that you like to watch entrepreneur films in a way, English in a way was an entrepreneur
I
film,
have watched.
right?
Yes. Yes.
She didn't realize she was an entrepreneur, but she was.
Definitely. Yeah, I have watched.
I
English.
want to
English was also good.
I want to end with one last light-hearted question. Do you have time to go away on holiday? And when you do, where do you like to go?
Yes, I love going on holiday. In fact, I love traveling. And next this week, I am just going to off on my vacation. I'm a beach person, and I would like to go to the area where I have lots of beaches. I'm a water baby. Yeah.
Lovely. And may life continue to be a world of beaches and women empowerment and continuing with your purpose. I've learned so much in this conversation, Anohita.
Same here, Sandhya. Same
I
here.
cannot
Yeah.
thank you enough for being a part of the road less traveled. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.